Good day to you. This is Mr. Mlenga, your teacher of geography. So today I want us to look at something very interesting, and that is population studies. So before we look into this in detail, I want us to look at some of the objectives that I want us to achieve by the end of the lesson. So by the end of the lesson, I expect you to define population. I also expect you to discuss the importance of conducting census. I also expect you to explain the key demographic terms. Now, when we say demographic terms, we are basically looking at the terms that we use in population studies. So let me take you straight into these concepts. So the first thing that we're going to look at is population itself. What is population? Now, population is the number of people living in a particular given area at a given time. As simple as that. We are looking at the number of people living in a particular given area at a given time. Now, when we look at demography as the concept, this is simply the study of changes in the number of births, marriages, deaths, sex, age, among others, in a particular area for a period of time. Now, in simpler terms, demography is the study of population changes. Now, we also have a very important concept of population explosion. Now, population explosion is the rapid increase in the number of, is the rapid increase in the population caused by reduced death rates, high fertility levels, better nutrition, and improved medical facilities. So when there is population explosion, there is rapid increase in the number of people in a particular, area. Now, doubling time is another concept. Now, doubling time is the number of years required for the population of an area to double its present size, given the current rate of population growth. So what this simply means is that if Zambia's population in 2010 was in 2010 was 10 million people, for example. We're just giving an example here. Okay, those are not real statistics. So if Zambia's population in 2010 was 10 million, and after 10 years, that will be in 2020, its population doubles its size from 10 million to 20 million. So we are looking at the period of years within which the population doubled. So from 2010 to 2020, that's about 10 years. So the doubling time for Zambia's population to double its size was simply 10 years between 2010 and 2020. So another concept is of, is that of rather young population. Now, this is a population mainly comprised of young people. For example, when we say young population, we're talking about the population of most of the developing countries like Zambia. Another concept is that of an aging population. Now, an aging population is also known as a graying population. Now, this is a population mainly comprised of old people. For example, most of the developed countries, like those countries in Europe, Germany, Italy, France, they have aging populations. In Asia, we have Japan, where you find so many old people and very few young people. The other concept is that of birth rate. Now, birth rate is very important to take note of. Birth rate is the number of births per 1,000 people per year in a population. So you're looking at the number of babies being born per 1,000 people in a year. It is usually given as a percentage. So, for example, if 30 births occur, this means that 30 over 1,000 people multiplied by 100, which is the total percentage, then you're going to have 3%, and is considered to be very, very high if you have at least 30 births in 1,000 people. Now, this is the simple mathematics. So we have 30 over 1,000. So this 30 is the number of births that occur in every 1,000 people. So all you need to do if you want to find the percentage here is to multiply that by 100, and you're going to have 3%. Now, let's look at death rate. Now, death rate is the number of people who have died in a year out of every 1,000 people. So it is the same concept in terms of calculating death rate. Now, we have a very interesting and important concept of natural increase of growth. Now, when we say natural increase of growth, you're looking at the increase in, population naturally by the natural cause. How does the population increase by the natural cause? That is the natural growth rate, or the natural rate of growth. Now, how do you find the natural, growth rate? Now, this is the difference between the birth rate and the death rate, expressed as a percentage. So you just need to subtract the difference in birth rate, and death rate, and you need to express that in percentage. That's the natural rate of growth. For example, the birth rate minus death rate over 1,000 multiplied by 1,000. That's the natural rate of, of increase. Now, it shows how fast or slow the population is growing. So for you to find the natural rate of growth, all you need to do is you get the birth rate and the death rate. So it is birth rate minus death rate over 1,000 multiplied by 100 if you want to find the percentage. Now let me take you straight into fertility rate, which is another very interesting and important concept. Now, fertility rate is the actual reproductive performance of an individual, couple, a group, or population. Now, fertility rate is simply the actual reproductive performance. Okay, that is the fertility rate, the actual reproductive performance of an individual, couple, a group, or population in general. Now, the total fertility rate, the TFR, the total fertility rate, is the average number of children that would be born alive to a woman during her lifetime. That would be born to a woman during her lifetime if she were to pass through her childbearing years of 15 to 49, 15 to 49. Now, mortality rate, this is the number of deaths in a given population. There has been a steady decline in mortality rates in Zambia, for example, due to improved standards of living and adequate provision of health services. Today, people in Zambia are able to live a little bit longer than they used to live in the past. Why? Because there is, there is improved standards of living and adequate provision of health services. So today, Zambia's, Zambia's life expectancy is standing at 64 years. Now, population density. When we talk of population density, we're looking at the number of people living in a square kilometer area. How many people are living in a particular area per square kilometer? Now, it is calculated by dividing the land area by the number of people, living in that area. So the example, how to calculate population density. We're looking at the number of people in an area. So let's say if people are, 100 in that area, you have to divide that rather by the area of the place. The area of the place is is 200 square kilometers. Then you need to write 200 square kilometers there. So it is the number of people in an area over the size of the area. Okay, the size of the area. Now, Lusaka is the most densely populated area in Zambia, followed by Copperbelt. There are more people in Lusaka than Copperbelt, than Eastern Province and other places. Now, life expectancy is the average number of years a person is expected to live from birth to death. So here in Zambia, the number of years one is expected to live from birth to death is standing at 64 years, like I earlier mentioned. Now, what are some of the factors that affect life expectancy? What makes people to live longer and what makes people to die early? Life expectancy is affected by several factors, such as the prevailing mortality trends and standards of living of the people. Standards of living, very, very important. Very, very important. So if people have good standards of living, even their life expectancy is, longer. Now, the advent of HIV and AIDS pandemic, poverty and high incidence of killer diseases. So all these, if you're having so many pandemics, like, HIV and AIDS, poverty is another factor, as well as, other killer diseases, like, COVID-19, which killed so many people who could have lived longer. So if you're having all those, you discover that even the life expectancy or the period you're expected to live on Earth, is quite shorter. Now, so these are just other examples of diseases like malaria, tuberculosis, and so on. Now, census is something that we cannot avoid to talk about, much as we are discussing population in general. Now, census is simply the official counting of all people in all the people in a country. Now, this is normally done by the government every after 10 years in Zambia, for example, because it is very expensive since it covers the whole country. Now, you cannot be conducting census every year because it's a very expensive exercise. That's why in Zambia, we conduct it every after 10 years. So last year, 2022, we had the census, which saw us, have people counted. If you are Zambian, were you counted? Are you among those who were counted? I guess you were. Now, census is conducted, census is conducted rather in order to know the size of the population, how many people you have, to collect information on employment status. How many people do you have in employment? How many young people do you have? How many old people do you have? The age, sex, how many females do you have? How many males do you have? How many houses do we have? The level of education, how many educated people do we have in Zambia? How many people do we have who have, degrees, diplomas, who've been to school, the level of education and the like, agriculture, marital status of the people. All these demographics are very, very important when conducting, census. So census gives us such kind of information, meaning that it is a very important exercise. Now, what is the importance of census? It gives information to the local and central government so that there is good planning in order to provide facilities like hospitals, houses, and schools to citizens. You would take, you would construct 5 schools in an area where there are only 100 people. Would those schools serve a purpose? No, that would be too much. So you discover that you need to have these demographics in order to know how much you need to take to an area. That's good planning. So census is important in that regard. It also provides resources, it also provides resources such as agricultural materials like fertilizers and seeds. It will help you to distribute these resources equitably. It also provides information to know whether the population is increasing or reducing, because such knowledge is needed for future planning. So that's the importance of conducting census. And besides, you need to know as a government and as a people how many people are unemployed so as to create jobs. Very important. Now, let me take you straight into migration, which is another very important concept. Now, migration is the movement of people from one place to another. Now, this could be within the country, which is internal migration, or between countries, which is international migration. So migration can either be internal, which is within the country, or between countries, which is international. Now, migration into the country is called immigration. Migration out of the country is called immigration. So you must be able to familiarize yourself with these concepts. Immigration and immigration. So when we say immigration, this is, moving into a country. Now, moving out of a country is basically what we call immigration. Now, internal migration is the movement of people from one place or one area to another within a country's border. Now, types of internal migration. There are 4 types of internal migration. There is what we call rural-urban migration, which is also referred to as rural-urban drift. Rural-urban migration or rural-urban drift. Now, this is the movement of people from rural areas to urban areas, from a village to a town, rural to rural. You're moving from one village to another. You're moving from one rural area to another rural area. So due to different reasons, for example, reasons of land, okay? You have acquired, a piece of land, or you've been given a piece of land in another rural area. You move from one rural area to another where you've been given land. Urban to rural, migration, where you move from a town, you go to a village, or you move from a town, you go to a rural area. For example, you've been working in the towns, or you've been working in the mine in town, and you retire, and you decide to settle in the village to do farming. So that could be urban rural migration, where you move from a town, you go to a rural area. Then there is urban to urban, where you move from one town to another. You move from Lusaka, you come to the Copperbelt, or you move from the Copperbelt, you come to Lusaka. That's another, type of internal migration. Now, rural-urban migration, like I earlier said, is what we refer to as rural-urban drift. Remember that. Now, this is the movement of people from rural areas to urban areas. Now, the factors that can cause this movement fall into categories. What makes people to move from rural areas to urban areas? So one of the reasons is, one of the groups of the reasons is what we call push factors. Now, push factors force people to move out of rural areas, or force people out of rural areas. What are those things that push people out or force people to move out of a rural area? Now, we also have what we call pull factors. So we have push factors and pull factors. So pull factors attract people to urban areas. Push factors force people out of rural areas. So what are these push factors we're talking about? What are these things which force people to move out of rural areas? Hunger, poverty, and lack of rainfall. When there's too much hunger, when there's too much poverty in the rural area, you have to move from there and hope for, an urban area which can provide perhaps, employment for you. So that's why people move. So if you look at these children are from a certain, rural area where they are living in hunger and poverty. So if their parents, find better opportunities in urban areas, they will be forced to move from such a rural area and go to an urban area where they'll have to earn a better living. Witchcraft is another reason. Witchcraft, I can tell you, forces people, to move from rural areas into urban areas. You talk of teachers, you talk of, nurses, other medical personnel, other, professions other professionals who've been, deployed by the government, for example, to work in rural areas where there is so much witchcraft. Those people or those professionals tend to look for, transfers to go to towns where they will be free from, witchcraft. So people are forced to move from rural areas due to witchcraft. I don't know if you believe in that. So this is a witch here. A wizard. A wizard. This is a wizard. Now, lack of good schools and health facilities. You want to go to a university, but in a rural area, there is no such facilities. What do? You have you have a health complication, but there are no health facilities to attend to such, a condition. What do? You have to move. You go to a place where you can access such services. So those are push factors. Now let's look at some examples of pull factors. Good medical facilities, good transport, good schools, urban electricity. All these are, Pull factors. These are things which attract people to urban areas. You have a mall there. Nice. Something that you can't find in a rural area. Okay. You have play parks. All these attract, people to urban areas. Now, population growth rate is another concept that you must be able to take keen interest in. Now, this is the rate at which population is increasing or decreasing in a given year due to natural increase, migration, or other factors. So there are two main factors. There are two main factors that lead to population growth rate. So these factors are natural increase, which I explained earlier on. So natural increase, I already explained this earlier on to say natural increase is just a subtraction of, death rate from birth rate. That's a natural increase. You tell the natural increase like that. Then migration, you're looking at how many people are moving in and how many people are moving out of the country. So that's about, how you can tell the growth rate. So you use those parameters to look at population growth rate. Now, population growth rate is the rate at which population is increasing or decreasing in a given year due to natural increase, migration, or other factors. Now, population growth rate, we are looking at birth rate minus death rate multiplied by 100. That's how you find it in percentage. Now, what are the factors leading to rapid population growth rate in Zambia? Now, early marriages, that's number one. Lack of family planning, high fertility rate, poverty. So these factors are very, very important. Improved nutrition makes people to live longer, thereby increasing the population. Inadequate education. You don't know or you don't have information on family planning, for example. And besides that, if you're not in school, your childbearing period will be longer. So as of today, we're able to say Zambia's population is increasing rapidly. So we are standing at, after the 2022 census, we are now standing at 19,610,769 people. So this is how many people we have. So in Zambia, there are about, 19.6 million people. And out of that, we have 9,603,056 males and 10,007,713 females. So you discover that Zambia's population is increasing rapidly due to these factors. Now, let me take you straight into some examination questions. Now, this is an extract from 2021 internal. Which of the following factors does not affect population distribution? Now, distance, natural increase, rainfall, relief. So the best possible answer here is distance. Now, which of the following is a positive effect of rapid population growth? When there are too many people, what could be the positive or the good thing about it? Availability of labor. Yes, that is good. You have too many people. And if you have a lot of people, you have enough labor. Overcrowding, this is bad. Poor sanitation, that is bad. Scramble for resources, that is bad. So we're looking at a positive effect. So the positive effect here is availability of labor. Now, question 13, an extract from 2019 says, which of the following is not a reason for carrying out national census? Why do we carry out national census? We just from talking about this. Now, which one is not the reason? Control of population growth. Find out the employment status. Very good, yes. This one, we do census for this. Find out the size of the population. Yes. Know the proportion of foreigners. Yes. So the best possible answer here is control the population growth. We don't, this is not the main reason. Question 14, the effect of rural-urban migration on rural areas leads to Now, what happens if a lot of people are living rural areas and settling, are trying to settle in urban areas? There is increase in crime in rural areas? No. Increase in young population? No. Reduced productivity, strengthened family ties. So the best possible answer is reduced productivity. When there are too many people living rural areas, what happens to the rural areas? There'll be no productivity because the productive people are moving out. This is now the 2020 external extract, which says, which of the following reasons is not the cause of rapid urban population growth in Zambia? Civil wars, good medical facilities, high birth rate, rural urban migration. So all these are factors leading to with population growth, except civil wars. We don't have civil wars leading to that in Zambia. So the best possible answer here is A, which is civil wars, because the question is saying reasons is not the cause. So why is there high population density on the Copper Belt? Because of farming, market, migration, mining. So on the Copper Belt specifically, we're looking at mining. So the answer here is D. Question 19. What is meant by the term census? It is the official counting of ballots, learners, people, votes. So it is the official counting of people in a country. So the best possible answer here is C. Now, question 20 says, which of the following is an effect of rural-urban migration in rural areas? So here we're looking at increased food production, increased male population, reduced food production, reduced water consumption. So the best possible answer here is reduced food production, because the productive people are moving out. So how do you produce enough? So the best possible answer here on question 20 is C, which says reduced food production. So thank you so much for your time. I'll see you in our next lesson when we conclude this topic of population studies in Zambia. Have a lovely day.